Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the Talent Collective today for this lovely fireside chat panel that we have. Today, we are here to talk about what do you do when you are running a lean team and you need to ramp up your next wave of hiring. I think a lot of people are in that boat right now where maybe there's been some downsizing that's happened. You know that next wave of hiring is coming at some point, and you're going to need to be strategic about it. Maybe you don't have headcount. Maybe you have just tight budgets. So we're going to be exploring a couple of different solutions here today. So welcome again. As everyone is coming in, feel free to put your name and your LinkedIn and maybe where you're calling from in the chat so everyone can connect with each other. Also, if you have any questions for the panelists throughout the day today, feel free to put those in the chat too. I'll do my best to monitor those. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end to ask those and get your questions answered. So today's chat was actually inspired by a conversation that Natalie had with one of our executive TA members of Talent Collective who had just done a huge round of layoffs. And she basically told her leadership team that, if I'm being asked to scale back, and scale back up at some point, like that's going to take time, right? So Natalie then kind of posed the question back to her, well, have you thought of using fractional help? Have you thought of using embedded recruiters to scale back up? And really, it was almost this light bulb moment of, no, I haven't. And, what is this thing? So we thought we would do a session on this to really, chat about the different options that are out there for how to scale back up quickly when you're asked to do so when you're already running a really lean team. So that's what today's session is all about. Just want to say a quick thank you to our speakers here today. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves in a moment. But we have Tammy Dane, Brandon Jess, Desiree Goldie, and Natalie Stones here today. And real quickly, if you aren't familiar with Talent Collective, we are a membership-based community for women in the talent acquisition and recruiting space. We put on a lot of different fireside chat panels, a lot of webinars, partner webinars, and those are all free and open to the public. And then we also have a lot of workshops and a mentorship program and all sorts of other things for our women members in TA. So would love to pass it over to our speakers now, and we can have some quick introductions and then we'll get started on the questions. So we could just go in that order. Tammy, if you want to start, and then Brandon, Desiree, and Natalie.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much, Krista. Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. For those of you that I haven't met, I'm Tammy Dane, founder and CEO at Rabble Recruiting. We launched in 2019, and what we do essentially is provide on-demand embedded recruiters, HR, and ops professionals at all levels. We're going to get into the terminology and what we actually define as embedded and what that looks like when we're partnering with our clients soon. But just a really quick origin story to share with you my background prior to becoming a founder. I've been in recruiting for over 15 years. Prior to launching Rabble, I was a director of recruiting at a company called Axiom, where I was managing a large team of 19 recruiters and sourcers. And what I like to share is that this was the solution that I wanted when I was leading that big team. For those of you that are currently leading teams or have led teams in the past, you can probably identify with this pain. I always had way too much work to do for my team and not enough people to actually do the work. And of course, I never got headcount. So I was just like, hey, there has to be a way to bring on really great help to fill in those gaps when I need extra support for my team. We also really had an incredible talent brand and never trusted outside partners. I vetted so many that I'll be honest, I actually just didn't trust. We had a couple that we used here and there for certain things, but most outside help just didn't work for us. So I was like, hey, I need to launch this agency that's really focused on providing exceptional on-demand embedded support because I couldn't see it in the market. And I'm really excited to share more about what we do and hear more from our other speakers as well. And yeah, we work with everyone from now seed stage startups all the way up to large public companies. So excited to share more. I think
Cool.
Brandon.
I'll jump in. Hey, everybody. I'm Brandon. I'm the director of people and talent over at TLDR. TLDR is a newsletter collective. If you're in the engineering or startup world, you may have heard of us. We may be in your inbox. But I just joined them a couple months back. Last year, I spent a year out as a fractional recruiter. I live and breathe talent acquisition, and I really enjoy working with early stage companies as part of building a fractional talent community as well, which was a really cool experience as we see this term fractional emerge in our vernacular. Outside of my day job, based in Colorado, I operate a people and talent podcast called the Revel TA Podcast, which I hope you'll all subscribe and listen to. And if you want to talk talent, send me a note and we can hit record.
Okay, go ahead.
Desiree?
Desiree, can you hear us?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Is it me?
Yeah, it's you.
I'm so sorry. Hi, I'm Desiree Goldie. I usually don't have blue hair, but today you get blue hair. So, and today is my summer blue hair. I am from ZRG Partners, which is probably the most unknown global talent advisory firm. We have 4 divisions. We have ZRG Embedded, we have ZRG Executive Search, ZRG Interim, and ZRG Consulting. But today we're here about, I mainly work with the ZRG Embedded group. And so that means I'm on the talent operation side of how this business works. And so we're always looking to put really great recruiters at clients. And so we'll talk about what that means and go through a little bit of that. But my other focus is also DEI. So I'm always looking at diverse candidates being placed at clients. So there's a lot of things that we're going to touch on today that touch on all those things. But I'm super excited to be here and super excited to see all of you. You know, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm always for that. I'm a big person on LinkedIn. Always glad to connect with everyone in the room. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. I'm Natalie. I'm one of the co-founders of Talent Collective. And if you want to know more why we started Talent Collective, thank you, Brandon, for posting our recent podcast. That is exactly what it's about. Good timing. So what do I do? So Talent Collective, obviously, you know what that is, but how did I get into recruiting? My journey is 20 plus years in TA, started in staffing with Krista, actually. So my first half of my career was in running full desk. And then the second half was head of talent, director level roles at some early stage startups. And then I went to a national PEO company. And I got laid off twice in kind of a 3-year period of time. So I decided I needed to find a way to create more stability in my career and financially. I didn't want to be tied to one company if I could avoid it, specifically in recruiting because it was, you know, tough. So I ended up going fractional myself and help out on an interim basis for clients, usually small, early stage clients, or they're just, you know, small mom and pop businesses. Non-sexy tech is actually really open to fractional right now. And so that's what I was doing prior to leaning fully into Talent Collective. But I still, you know, like to put on my fractional hat. So I'm excited to be here today.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to dive right in. So as I mentioned earlier, and you might have guessed just from the panelists and what they do, we're going to actually be talking about several different types of options to scale back up a team when you maybe don't have headcount. So let's say you are a recruiting leader or, you know, somebody in recruiting who has done those layoffs and or just asked to keep a really lean team. At some point, you know that the organization is going to scale back up, and we've all seen it happen. We have this cycle and these waves that happen. And, you know, hopefully we see that happen this year. I think we're all kind of, you know, cross our fingers. But so what are some of those alternatives to bringing on a full-time recruiter if you do run a lean team? So we're going to start with Brandon, and he'll go and he'll talk a little bit about fractional. Then Desiree and Tammy will talk about embedded and the RPO models. And then lastly, Natalie will chime in with agencies. So Brandon, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think a good starting point is defining fractional. It's this new trendy word in our dialogue. We see it on LinkedIn, stopping our feed. We see our friends talking about going fractional. But it's a little bit of a choose your own adventure as a term, and it lacks a universal definition. So if you're thinking about hiring fractional, it's a good starting point to have everybody be on the same page. And the way I and some of my colleagues have defined fractional is just simple. It's part-time. It's usually a blend of strategic and tactical work. So if you think of like a McKinsey consultant, that's big strategy. But a fractional recruiter or fractional insert job description, job title is somebody who actually rolls up their sleeves and has a thirst to deliver operationally as well. So simply from the HR perspective, it's part-time, 1099 contract, to have somebody come in and be an expert, but also be able to roll up their sleeves. So that's how I think about it.
All right, Desiree, Natalie.
Yeah, I'm going to start. I think embedded's an interesting word, right? We've always been in this kind of RPO model, which was very traditional of, and by the way, recruitment process outsourcing, where we put people and recruiters in a place to fill roles, right? And we've done that traditionally for, I think it's almost 15, 20 years. But we did it in these long-term contract moments. And it hasn't worked in the long term, right? Like it doesn't really, it breaks the system almost. Because if you are really subjected to an RPO in that model, you don't actually get what you need, right? So embedded does this a little differently. For ZRG, that means flexible, no contracts, maybe I should say contracts, but they're at a 3-month base. You get to interview every recruiter. You get to make sure they are part of your brand. They make sure that you're part of their culture. They are part of your culture, and that they understand the assignment, right? You are not just putting people in a seat. Butts in a seat does not work anymore, right? In this culture. And so this is very different. So the embedded recruiting RPO model is different than the traditional RPO model. And so I'll talk a little bit about both because I think they're both also a really good plan, right? Organizations should look at supplementing their hiring, right? When we had all these layoffs from TA, and then there's this moment where, what do I do now? And so you have to bring on contract recruiters, and the RPO or embedded also makes sense. And so that's kind of my definition. It's really bringing someone on to be invested in your culture, invested in your branding, invested in your tools, systems, emails, like all the things to bring them on and just be part of your team. And that's, and we'll delve into it a little bit more, but that's my definition.
Perfect. Yeah. And I'll just jump in to continue to expand on that. Love Desiree's definition, very similar to ours as well at Rabble. We really view embedded recruiters as an extension of your team. The RPO model is a bit archaic, I think, in a lot of folks's view. There's some great RPOs out there, but let's be honest, there's also been some that have been lackluster and have had just lackluster results when they've partnered with their clients. So I think that's why there was really an opportunity in the market for disruption into the space. We really seek to be at Rabble, a boutique firm that's really providing an embedded resource that becomes that extension, that understands your culture, your mission, that truly just looks and feels like a member of the team, but they're only going to be there for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Something else to point out when you hear that term embedded, it certainly is true for us at Rabble, is like we have actually no minimum partnership requirement. Companies can subscribe to as little as 5 hours of sourcing support a week from an embedded recruiter or an embedded sourcer, all the way up to, I have some engagements that are going on for 2+ years now with some of our clients. So that customizable nature of the embedded support model, I think, is something to really point out, because a lot of folks in-house kind of don't really know that there are resources like this out there that can really customize to their budget and their needs, whether they need a coordinator, sourcer, or full cycle recruiter. So I would just add that on top of Desiree's definition as well, which was very good.
You and Natalie, talk about agencies.
So agency is not a new term. It's been around since the beginning of time. So I won't belabor it too much, but agencies are also a great alternative when you are looking to scale quickly. The way that could best work for you is if you don't have the bandwidth, the time, the network, you've exhausted all of your options and want to just simply outsource the entire search to an agency. And typically you're going to pay a contingency fee. So anywhere between 20 and 30% of that candidate's annual salary that's offered. That's going to be the fee that you pay, but you don't pay it until you actually hire that person. Some firms are now moving to like a contained model. So you pay an upfront administrative fee to kind of kick off the search, smaller amount, couple $1,000s, and then you pay the remaining amount success hire once you actually find someone. And then some have gone fully retainer, or if they're exec search working on leadership level roles, they are pretty much exclusively retained. So I think there's a place for all of these models. It just depends on what your comfort level is, what your need is, your sense of desperation, what you're used to, how much your budget is. I've seen cases where, presenting companies all 3 models side by side and really showing them this is what the cost could likely be in all 3 scenarios. What works for you? What feels more comfortable? Some don't mind paying the higher contingency fee because they don't want to have to be locked into paying something ahead of time. Others really like fractional embedded because they see that they're saving a lot of money. And so they want to save money. So there's really a room for all 3/4 of these models if you throw in RPO.
Awesome, thank you. So this next question would, kind of beg the question about, if we have all these other models out there, how is it that these models actually do help you ramp hiring more quickly than an FTE would? So let's have Brandon and Tammy tackle this one.
Tammy, do you want to go first? Do you want me to jump in?
Go for it, Brandon. Yeah, go for it.
So I think when building a TA team or a team with recruiters, looking at the data, how long does it take us to source and convert a recruiter for an engineering team or go-to-market team? What is that actual time to hire? Sometimes we've had those quick wins. I think as I reflect back, my record for time to hire is 36 hours from like cold outbound message to signed offer letter for one of my favorite recruiters in the world. It was just a super fun moment in time of moving super fast, catering to the candidate experience. Like, this is an excellent recruiter. Could that recruiter also be an excellent fractional recruiter? Yeah, of course. We're adaptable. We're flexible. We've all probably worked in different dynamics under these title categories. So fundamentally, it just comes down to what as an organization are we capable of doing? And if we need to move insanely fast, but the data from our system says we haven't historically been able to hire recruiters and ramp them to full productivity, we may need somebody that's a little bit more turnkey. And then it comes down to less about what we call ourselves, whether embedded, agency, RPO, contingent, fractional, and more about selecting like the right arrow from our quiver for a specific need. And that's where we think about, okay, how can we surface references and referrals to get the absolute best recruiter for an ML team or a research team or a software engineering team? And if you find the right recruiting resource, they likely will have pipeline immediately. You get to a level when you're working in these models that the recruiters have the talent, they know how to reach talent quickly. And it's a matter of getting the administrative lift out of the way so you can have the benefits of near immediate results. I would say anybody in recruiting right now during this market shift, if you can't get pipeline in 2 weeks, whether you're W-2 or an agency or a fractional recruiter, like this may not be the industry for you. Companies demand more of us. We've always been historically scapegoated in organizations. So like now is our time to demonstrate our ability. And I think this recalibration of how organizations think about talent as more elite talent leaves, that W-2 golden handcuff chasing a basis point of equity is really shifting. And some of those top recruiting folks are in these different types of models, but it comes down to having a really consultative approach and asking a lot of discovery questions and understanding what your recruiting partner is going to be able to do for you. And then it comes down, I think, to surfacing like case studies, identifying a process for how you're going to onboard that person. I think about it as, you have 2 documents when you're engaging with somebody. It's a master service agreement and a statement of work. What is going to go into that statement of work so that you're crystal clear with your search partner, your fractional recruiter, your embedded recruiter, so that everybody knows what they're doing, because there's so many ways to hire and recruit. As a few simple examples are, with the person you're hiring, are they going to write job descriptions? Are they going to do job post marketing and ATS administration? Are they going to do interview design and assessment methodology? Will they train hiring managers? Are they going to be on weekly one-on-one hiring manager calls? Are you going to have a debrief for each candidate? Is there interviewing, scheduling, and coordination that you need this person to own? Are they going to handle offers and negotiations? Will they run reference checks? All of this balloons so quickly. And at the end of the day, our stakeholders don't care. They just needed talent yesterday. So I'll pause there.
Yeah. I think that was really good, obviously. And just to add on to that a little bit, this is what I talk about with my clients all the time when they come to me and I'm on a call with them and they're trying to decide, should we hire an FTE or should we go with Rabble and bring on an experienced embedded recruiter? And my number one question to them is, how important is speed? How quickly do you need to hire these roles? Because yes, I completely agree with Brandon that the tides have changed. If you can't deliver, whether you're an FTE or a consultant, in 2 weeks and build pipeline and get in there really quickly, there is actually somebody right behind you that can do it and will jump in and maybe do it faster than you. But my point to my clients is that unless this is your business, and to Brandon's point, unless you know your stats on how long it takes you to hire a recruiter, and are you guys good at hiring recruiters? Are you good at vetting for flexibility, agility? Have you already vetted a swath of recruiters and know when they can actually start? If speed is truly really important, going the embedded or fractional or another solution that our expertise in our domain is delivering fast hires for our recruiters, this is the solution you have to go with. Because what we do is obviously parachute in recruiters that literally jump in a matter of, a day or two, and they are doing a hiring manager kickoff conversation, sometimes even their first day with clients. And even though you and I both know we've all been on the other side where we've interviewed even recruiters, HR, people for our own team, and been disappointed at times that they're not quite who we thought they could be. Working with a Rabble, for example, where we've worked with the same recruiting consultants year after year. We know this is their domain. They deliver time and time again. That's the reason to go this route. If speed and just a recruiting expertise is really important, going with a known quantity versus kind of hiring somebody that maybe isn't tried and true, might be the best approach for you there.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you both. And Desiree and Natalie, if you have anything to add, feel free to chime in at any point. But we'll move on to the next question, but if you want to chime in too. So if you are looking to hire additional recruiting help, it's all about ROI, right? You're going to have to justify the cost and the time and the savings to whoever your leadership team is. So how do you go about calculating and articulating the value of fractional hires or embedded hires to justify the cost versus an FTE hire? So this one we can have Natalie, Desiree, and Brandon tackle.
Natalie, do you want to jump in first?
Sure. So some of the most obvious answer to that is fractional means you're paying for a fraction of that person's time. So you're paying a fraction of the cost. So it's all just kind of in the name. For example, if you are a company and you just need some light help, 10 hours a week, 40 hours a month, then that's what you pay for. And you scale up and down the hours that you need. And so your retainer 1 month could be X, the next month could be Y. But you have an ongoing commitment of, ideally you have a 3 to 6 month contract or something longer and you're part-time. But the benefits really to an organization is that they're paying for a fraction of the time and expense that it would be side by side with a full-time employee, meaning you're only paying for the time that they're working. You don't have to pay benefits. They are 1099 contractors, so we own and run our own business. We pay our own taxes. So there's no employment tax or employee tax, I should say. There's no equity. You as a company could build that in if you wanted. I think it's a little less common. Bonuses also a little less common, but sometimes I do see it. But at the end of the day, you're not paying a full-time salary and you're not paying benefits. Those are the two biggest, most expensive areas. And the example that I use, which I admittedly tell on myself, is there have been a couple times in a few of my head of talent roles where I come in and I'm either building something or setting it up for scale or I'm fixing it, right? So there's a lot to do in the beginning. And so I'm go, 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 tons to do. And then kind of 6 months, 1 year in, it's kind of like, okay, everything's kind of in a good spot. Things are ho-humming along. The team's really well trained. So I'm not as busy as I was. I would never want to tell on myself and lose my job. But for me, it was a little uncomfortable because I knew in some cases I wasn't really working full time. Now, some of you are looking at me like, you're crazy, just go with it. And I did. But in some cases, that's the perfect example of how a company can save expense by just paying for the time and expertise that they need at that time or season in their business or stage of their business.
Yeah, Brandon, did you want to chime in or?
Go for it. I'd love to hear your perspective.
All right. Oh my goodness. So this is a great example of it. We just got a client on a 90-day sprint. They needed to hire, 40, 50 engineers in a 90-day sprint, right? So when I use this example, I use it because why would you hire a full-time recruiter to do that job? You only need 90 days. You need 40 software engineers in 90 days. You need it for this project. Why would you move forward with a full-time employee? First of all, the time of onboarding and HR and all of those things, I think Natalie touched on, are exorbitant, right? And that's another person doing that work. So if you look at percentage of that other person's time of work to facilitate that person through the process, we're also taking time away. And if we assign dollars to that, we're just calculating dollars. We're just adding up dollars to that moment, right? And if we look at, if I put it at an agency, let's say I need those 40 software engineers, and this is not to talk bad about agency, it's just the difference between embedded and agency. If we put those 40 recs at an agency, the cost to work with one recruiter or two recruiters is 50% of the, it's 50%. Right? I would spend more money with an agency than I would spend with just having a recruiter who's also selling the message, right? Who's selling my message as an organization at the bottom line, right? I can train that person in 2 days to sell the pitch. And that's a big thing. I can, because I'm not putting people who aren't crafted through your industry, who don't know your model, who don't understand the business. I'm putting people forward who have that industry experience and can do the work. And so you only need maybe 48 hours to get them ramped up to be able to sell the pitch. Then they sell the pitch and then they're ready to go and understand the systems. So it's a very different thing than bringing on an FTE. It's a huge difference. And, you know, I will say that my background was not in this. It was really understanding how to bring an FTE internally to recruiting. And, you know, and I have to say that with all the layoffs and all the things that are going on, with bandwidth being a really stretch, this is a time to embrace these models. Fractional, interim, you know, embedded, RPO. This is the time that you can utilize that and save your company money. It's just the bottom line. We can save our organizations money and still get value out of that. And that's my opinion. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Desiree, that's 100%. Like I just agree with all of that, and you too, Natalie. When I think about what recruiters do, we're here to broker introductions, to get to a handshake and a signature and a yes, so that we can drive the business forward. End of the day, like I don't think about it as recruiting or HR. We're just operations, and I'm an early stage startup guy, so I can get away with some stuff in my experience, and I like don't have visibility into problems of scale that like a big tech recruiter might, because I'm far more interested in just like the really scrappy ways to influence human behavior to deliver results to the business. And I think that's the interesting thing about working in recruiting, is it's unlocking people's potential in a moment of time. And I think it's an interesting case when we work with our stakeholders to ask, what are they looking to focus on? Are they focusing on time, quality, or price and cost in their hiring process? Because you can't have all three of time, quality, and cost. You can only pick two. And when you think about what a fractional recruiter can do, it's that parachuting in that was mentioned earlier. They are usually elite folks that can see around corners. They've developed career experience in crucible moments for other companies to apply rapid pattern matching. And they just move and think at a different level. As we think about being adaptable as people and talent leaders, the industry has forced out a lot of really good recruiters to take that leap. So you will have to have a very strong employee value proposition to get perhaps a really successful recruiter to come back in-house when they've navigated 3 or 4 layoffs in the last few years since COVID. So when I think about the cost of what it takes, I don't recommend companies think about it as the monthly cost of an annualized salary. And this is where it gets a little bit murky, and we need to put on our stakeholder management and strategic advisor hats. We don't have compensation reports and benchmarks on fractional talent. You need to trust your gut a little bit when you're getting talent in to these conversations and how you're vetting and assessing the value they can bring to the business. And oftentimes fractional recruiters will have some sort of specialization in a certain field, whether it's engineering or go to market, or maybe exec search. Maybe it's recruiter market fit to the industry that you're in. Maybe it's a recruiter who exited a certain product that has become a tech darling and got acquired, and you're building a similar version of that. Those are the signals I look for in hiring and assessing a fractional recruiter. Whenever I do the napkin math, the total cost is always less. And Natalie mentioned those specific levers. And one of my tricks that I will freely give away, and it's something I've used in biz dev with clients of my own and getting folks placed, is if you're in a startup and you're talking to a founder that's a little bit skittish perhaps of a 12, 15K retainer fee for a fractional recruiter, isn't that startup trying to be $1 billion company? So if you're going to be $1 billion company and your P&L and your budget for the role for somebody in-house is maybe 8 or 9K, but you're not willing to pay 10 or 15K for somebody who has talent and pipeline now, like, to me, that doesn't make sense. Another lever you could pull is talk to your marketing team. What's your digital marketing advertising budget for that month? How much are you writing to LinkedIn for retargeting ads? 15K, but you're not going to hire a 12K retained fractional recruiter. Every CEO says hiring talent is their number one priority. So it's up to us to remind them how and why we should do that.
And I just want to say, Krista, really quickly, when we do the napkin math, and Tammy, please like back me up, when we do the napkin math versus bringing on 4 people as a recruiting team, right? And the management of that and all of that, and love the napkin math. I'm going to use that forever. Like when I do the napkin math, embedded always wins out over these agency moments. And so, you know, when we look at your budget as a TA team that's been probably sliced a million times, right? When you do the napkin math, how you get to the end result and to the goal is through bringing on and again, this could say we can use embedded and fractional interchangeably, almost fractional recruiting help, right? And Tammy, please chime in. I don't want to take over, but I do want to say the napkin math works in our favor against the agency model, only because you get so many things with us, right?
And just to back you up, Desiree, 100%, my napkin math always shows that I typically save clients 50% per hire than what they would have paid if they went to a traditional agency. Not to say that there isn't a time and a place where that might be the right solution for a company, depending on what they're, going through. But especially when cost is important, typically what I like to share, and we have case studies that shows this to clients who are curious, that have maybe never leveraged embedded recruiting for executive search or for just any search. We like to show them, look at the math here. Numbers don't lie. Typically we're saving at least 50%, if not more, especially on higher volume engagements where clients have more than one hire to make. The numbers just are amazingly enormous what it will save them.
Mm-hmm. One thing I was thinking of as you all were talking is, like, one, with the ability to ramp really quickly, but then two, which feeds into cost savings, is, embedded and RPO recruiting models typically have a bench of recruiters, right? They have people that have already been vetted, already ready to go, many times have already worked at other clients and have, received those really good reviews. So even just finding the recruiter themselves with that expertise and or niche to be able to come in and hit the ground running day one is, saving time right there.
Krista, I mean, we look at industries like manufacturing and they come to us and they're like, I don't know who can find a forklift operator, right? And so I already have that on my bench. And I'm like, I'm going to pull so-and-so and put them on that account. And that is the beauty of embedded recruiting RPO, is that we are for us, ZRG, we are industry agnostic. So we have that bench of people that we are able to pull for very niche roles, right? And so it may take your internal recruiter probably 2 or 3 months to find that person. I've already got it. So that's a really big benefit to embedded in RPO as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Desiree,
great.
I love that. My first job out of school in the Great Recession was driving a forklift, and like I remember hiring for grocery store clerks, folks
Yeah,
that didn't have a digital profile. Sometimes we get in this little like echo chamber of how fun it is to recruit AI ML engineers in tech
yeah,
startups. And it's like hiring is so vast. Like we were just such a little pin drop in the bucket. And there are so many cool ways to innovate and think about hiring as a
yeah.
whole in industries that there are people that just are not online.
And it's so fun because in embedded, when we work industry agnostic, we get to touch on all these things. And so for me, my joy is like, I get to touch a forklift operator, or I get to touch a software engineer, I get to touch a CEO. Like we have the gamut of, what that is definitely happening. And so for me, that is so great to be able to pull a recruiter. By the way, I'm not good at everything. By the way, I'm really good at something, but I'm not the best recruiter for you all the time. And so to be able to pull a recruiter who has done that for years and put them on your account it's a seller for us. And it makes organizations move forward rapid speed.
As the guy on the panel, I'll just remind everybody, don't touch the candidates.
Got it, Brandon.
I have a question in the chat that I think we could discuss right now. And by the way, if anyone has questions, please feel free to put them in the chat so we can try to get to those. But Angie had asked, has anyone worked within the QSR industry? I had to look that up. I think that
It's
is
quick service restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's right.
worked in
Got
it. Done it, been there. Yeah, so that's hospitality. Yes, so ZRG has, if you have needs, please let me know. But yes, it's a very different model and a very different industry. And please let me know what your exact needs are. I'd be glad to answer those questions. But it is a very specific niche moment that RPO and embedded can fix. But and also probably fractional, because I literally placed a CFO there for 9 months. So please let me know if we can help.
Great. All right. Just have a couple last questions here. Also just wanted to say, Brandon, I love how you always bring it back to recruiters essentially are bringing in people that are delivering value for the business, and always reminding in your pitch and or when you're working with clients about like, most CEOs now say, finding top talent is their number one headache challenge. So why would you not pay, money for that, right? So thank you for that good reminder. Next question here, we'll go to Tammy and Brandon. So when thinking about all of these different models, like when does it make sense to bring on fractional embedded recruiters to a company? Like what stage are we talking about?
Yeah, I love this question. I'm so glad you had it on here, Krista, because this is one of the top questions that comes up when I'm talking with new clients. Like, are you ready for us? Is this the time to bring on an embedded recruiter? Are we too early? Are we too late? For us specifically, and at least answering from our perspective and how we work with clients, it's never too late or too early. We've literally parachuted in foundational recruiters for seed stage startups and Series A startups, where our recruiter has been the first recruiter in actually building out processes, playbooks, doing hiring manager interview training, building out scorecards, you name it, from the ground up. And then we've also worked with post-IPO clients as well that maybe we're doing maternity or paternity leave coverages, or filling in a gap when there's been an unexpected departure and a recruiter on the team just slaps a 2-week notice on the director's desk, and they need to bring in a recruiter to bridge the gap while it takes them 8 or 12 weeks to hire a full-time resource in their place. So again, it really depends on the provider that you're going to partner with. I would be asking providers, do you have experience with seed or series A or series B, like whatever your particular situation is as the end client, and ask them if they have experience serving you and your particular just-in-time need. But at least for us, because our bench, very similar to Desiree's, is so diverse, we have recruiters on our bench who have been the foundational recruiter that have built everything from scratch, from the ground up. And then we also have recruiters that have worked at the largest tech companies in the Valley and large public companies. So we're able to match that talent with what the client needs in order to serve them in the best way. So really start there, ask questions, see if that provider has experience with your stage of growth. And then there's plenty of different ways to partner, whether you have leave coverages or just need to scale up the team for a few months to do some hiring.
Thank you. Brandon, anything to add?
Yeah, the way I think about it is, what is an ethical and sustainable path forward? Again, my experience is in tech startups, venture-backed tech startups. There's inherent risk that is just different from other sectors of hiring. And it really comes down to understanding our budget, working with the CFO, working with the CEO. What is the headcount growth plan for the next 18 to 24 months? If the team can't articulate a commitment to the roles they're looking to hire based on their runway, why, as a people leader, would I try to bring somebody in W-2 in-house, like, again? How many layoffs do we have to go through? How many times do we have to see this? And I think we're just at a turning point where, like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And even if we have a higher appetite for risk in startups, let's still be measured with that. Natalie mentioned earlier a fascinating reason and motivation for going fractional, and it was to de-risk her financial security through work by going out on her own and starting a business. Like, that is the beauty of capitalism. So when we think about when we need recruiters, it's to get through these crucible moments that are live or die for early stage companies. I think, like, I've been in situations where I've talked with Series A founders and I'm like, do you really need me? Do you really need a full-time recruiter? Why do you think you need a recruiter? If you've only got 12 or 15 roles in a headcount plan, that may be not enough to warrant a full-time employee. And then it goes back to cost, time, and quality. What are we doing that's outside of the world of HR, outside of the world of recruiting, that fundamentally just helps the business grow? So I think there are a ton of different use cases for fractional. It just comes down to that heart-to-heart conversation with your stakeholder, and then vetting your fractional recruiter really, really strong, and just holding a high bar so that you know the results you're going to get. Because the worst thing that you could do is hire the wrong fractional person, wait 6 weeks, realize it's the wrong fit, get another person in, realize it's the wrong fit. And then you're just on this treadmill where you're then biased against the field because it was actually poor process that wasn't aligned for your actual search. So another good tip I would have is just talk to a few people, bring in some advisors, talk to some fractional recruiters. If you have 2 or 3 conversations with an agency, RPO, embedded, and a few fractional recruiters, you're going to have clarity on, like, who's going to deliver what you need. But, like, recruiting is kind of like sales. We've got that pizzazz, we've got that showmanship. If you're talking to a fractional recruiter, like, they're going to show you some skills and show you something that is going to bring value to get you to lean in a little bit. Like a good chef leaves just enough sauce on the plate to want you to have more. I think a good fractional recruiter will surface those case studies, those references, those referrals, and just make it feel really easy for you to say yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Thank you. Angie's asking a question. If a person is interested in a position, how can they reach out to join your pipeline? I'm assuming that means for like an embedded recruiter firm like Rabble or Desiree's company. I will be sending out an email after the call with a recording of the call and also all of the speakers' LinkedIn profiles. So you can definitely reach out to any of our speakers on LinkedIn and connect with them. And then coming up on our last question here, and again, if there's any other questions from the audience, please put those in the chat. And this one is for Natalie and Desiree. So how do you go about hiring a fractional or embedded resource?
Hit it, Tammy.
Go ahead,
Who's
Natalie.
next, Natalie?
Natalie, yeah, why don't you
Yeah,
chime
go
in on
ahead.
that one?
Yeah.
I can speak to like the fractional side. The thing that I always like to clarify with clients, prospects, or recruiters that are looking to go fractional is, to Brandon's point, the true definition of it is you're working part-time. And so this is my opinion. Not everybody always agrees with this opinion, is that the fractionals process in which they get in and the way that they are onboarded is somewhat similar to hiring a full-time employee, albeit as a fractional, you typically are being hired very quickly as a subject matter expert. So I've never gone through a traditional interview process for a fractional role. It's been, hey, I'm looking to hire this, or I need an ATS cleanup, or I need reporting or whatnot. Great, I have that skill set. Let's hop on a call. It's more like a discovery call. And then if there's mutual fit and the price is right, then we move forward. But I always request that I am onboarded just like a full-time employee. I want to meet all the key stakeholders. I want to be added to all of the relevant weekly meetings. I want to have consistent syncs with whoever I'm going to be reporting to. I need access to all tools. So it shouldn't feel any different than your full-time hire. Like I still want to be invited to, company offsites, team building things, because I want to be seen as the go-to person for their recruiting needs all across the organization. And if that onboarding doesn't go well, then you often are seen as an agency or a temp or somebody you're just kind of over here. You just supply what you need, the resumes, and you're not really a true embedded part of the company. So that's my thought on that.
Yeah, so for us at ZRG, we have an internal recruiting for recruiters team. So we have a process. It's like an application, like anything else. We go through an interview process. You meet with our sales team, which is a little bit odd, but you do meet with our internal recruiting for a recruiters team. Then you meet with our sales team. But I would suggest that if anybody is ever interested in any of the services or being a recruiter for us, please reach out to me. I'll direct you to the right path, right? Like I don't want you to go down this windy road because ZRG is actually a decent sized firm and you can get lost in it. So please reach out to me and I can direct you the right way. But it's a very similar process. You go through an interview. You interview with the client. So unlike traditional RPOs, embedded does a little bit differently. On our side, we do let the clients interview who's being placed. The traditional RPO said, we're just going to sit recruiters with you and you better be happy with what you get. We do not do that. We actually have you interview with the client and make sure that the match is happening, that there is actually a brand, make sure that you're contribute the message, that the mission, vision, and values are aligned, right? Because it doesn't always work. People are people. So we make sure that all of that happens. So we do have you interview internally, and then we have you interview it with the client as well. And then you get placed. And then the extension of that, you sign a contract basically with us that goes 3, 6, 9, whatever those months are with our client. And then you can also be on the, then after that, we put people on the bench for a short period of time, and then we put you back on a client. So embedded's an interesting model, but it does work in the long term.
Great. perfect.
Tammy, I'm
Thanks.
sorry, did you want to add anything else with embedded? I feel like maybe I missed something.
No, that was
Yeah.
great. Yeah, nothing to add.
All right. Well, it looks like there's no other questions in the chat, so I think we'll wrap it up. But just wanted to give one last huge thank you for our panelists today, helping to educate us all on these different creative recruiting models and how heads of talent can help scale their team back up when they don't have headcount. So thank you all. And again, I will send out the recording and links to all of their LinkedIn after the session as soon as I get the recording. Also, for any other events that Talent Collective has publicly, we list those on our Luma page and our LinkedIn page. So make sure you're following us on both places. And last but not least, if you are a woman in the talent acquisition space and you're not a member of Talent Collective, would love to learn more, please reach out to me. I would be more than happy to hop on a call with you and share some additional things. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day and week, and a good 4th of July if you're in the United States next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.